Welcome back. Now, yet again, the government of national unity is on the rocks. The formation's second biggest partner, the DA, has decided to boycott the August National Dialogue, but not participating in the dialogue's interministerial committee may get DA leader sanctioned by President Ramaphosa. In turn, the party is threatening a motion of no confidence against the president. Business Day's political editor, Hajra Omarjee, joins us with her take on what's playing out in the GNU and what it suggests for stability moving forward. Hajra, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Now, I've just highlighted where we are when it comes to the GNU. Is this our new reality?
So at Business Day, we've been very cautious not to cry wolf when it comes to tensions within the GNU. Because I think most South Africans agree, and the vote depicts this, that no one party has the full confidence of South Africans to go it alone. However, I do think President Ramaphosa's firing of DTI Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield does mark a milestone in what will eventually become irreconcilable differences between the ANC and the DA that will lead to a divorce. Firstly, President Ramaphosa firing Andrew Whitfield in the manner in which he did, without due process, without giving him 14 days to give reasons why he should not be fired, without allowing the DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, to tell his own party that their nominee would be removed from the national executive, and the party finding it out in the media like everyone else. I do think that suggests an anomaly in the way Ramaphosa handled this matter. Now, the question then begs is, why was it so urgent to fire Andrew Whitfield? He went to the United States in February. Amongst the people he met were representatives from Ted Cruz's office, Marco Rubio's office, and the Hudson Institute. When he returned, all three of those people or institutions became very vocally critical of South Africa. However, the DA vehemently deny that he badmouthed South Africa. Another possibility is that Andrew Whitfield leaked certain sensitive information, either around the Transformation Fund or the Lotto, which the Department of Trade and Industry was handling. Or a third scenario is that a fellowship was offered to Andrew Whitfield by Harvard University, and he had asked the president to take up that opportunity. We simply do not have clarity because the president fired him without due process, which is, I'm sorry to say, very unlike the President Cyril Ramaphosa we've known in office since 2018, who has followed due process. And the last point I want to make is the president seems quite passionate about the national dialogue, and I think most South Africans will agree that there's a need to renegotiate South Africa's economic settlement, because the majority of South Africans remain disenfranchised, and the outcome of the election is a reflection of that disenchantment by the majority of South Africans. But it's lovely to have a national dialogue, but the president is not talking to his coalition partners or has not taken cabinet on a bus parade. So I'm wondering about whether he himself is genuine about the GNU, or if he just wants to get to the G20, and then the breakup may happen after.
So then could we expect to see the DA perhaps leaving, or the ANC pushing the DA out? Because from where we stand, it does seem like none of the parties want to make that move.
So I think if we see economic growth in the fourth quarter of this year and the first quarter of next year, there will be hope for the GNU.
Okay.
I think that the ANC's and the government's negotiations with the United States, especially over AGOA in the automotive industry, as well as a possible push back on tariff proposals from the US, will be critical to that economic growth. If there is economic growth, there is hope for the GNU. If there's no economic growth, who does the DA blame? Why does the DA stay in the GNU? Or if the ANC does badly in local government elections, who's it going to blame?
And it also seems, Hajra, that GNU members are struggling to separate themselves from, being part of cabinet, part of government, and also being individuals in their parties. What do you make of that?
So I think the DA needs to learn government.
Yeah.
I think when you want to fire someone, you can fire them for using too much toilet paper. And Andrew Whitfield fell into that trap when he decided to go to the US without President Ramaphosa's permission. However, I also think that President Ramaphosa needs to show leadership. He needs to meet with GNU partners once a week, once a month, and he needs to follow the due process that we know him to be committed to. I mean, there were massive allegations of corruption around William Kize, for example, the former health minister. He followed due process. He gave the man 14 days to respond to why he should not be fired. Why was there such an urgency to fire Andrew Whitfield, and why not allow the DA to make representations on his behalf, for him to make representations on his behalf, or allow the DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, to inform his own party that Whitfield is being fired? It simply doesn't make sense. We don't have all the facts yet, but the story certainly has legs and should be marked as a milestone in what will eventually become irreconcilable differences between the ANC and the DA.
All right, with that being said, we've seen a lot of public spats between, those parties. And I'd just like your assessment on whether we are seeing the courts being used as a political environment to just, deal with these spats between the two parties.
Look, I've been watching the DA's push against transformation policy.
Yeah.
South Africa's transformation and economic redress policies quite closely. And I think that's where the ANC and the DA will ultimately struggle to reconcile. Because the DA is trying to protect its privilege. The DA is screaming from the rooftops in order to defend itself to its constituency. While the ANC has not held an NEC, National Executive Committee, for the last 6 months, and Ramaphosa, in firing Whitfield or signing the National Health Insurance Act, seems to be doing things for political expedience rather than a genuine need for transformation. So yes, the courts are being used as a way to be an arbitrator, which I suppose it is the courts and Parliament's role. But I do think we should be left out of it, because if the president was meeting the GNU partners once a week or once a month, we as South Africans would not be subjected to unnecessary tensions. But also, and most importantly, investors don't care about nuance. They see a headline and they disinvest. So not talking to each other within a coalition certainly is not in the national interest. It is in a party political or a personal interest. And I think that's the message to all the leaders of the GNU, including President Ramaphosa.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, Hajra. Thanks so much for your time and coming through to studio this afternoon. That was Business Day's political editor, Hajra Omarjee.